The Frankfurter was not born on a bun. It was born in a smokehouse in a German city whose butchers had been making sausages since the 1200s, centuries before Columbus crossed the Atlantic. Frankfurt's meat guilds had refined a specific pork sausage, finely ground, lightly spiced with salt, pepper, marjoram, and garlic, smoked over beechwood. The city marks 1487 as the Frankfurters' recognized origin year, by which time it was already a local staple. 5 centuries of butchery distilled into a single link. Vienna answered with its own version. The Wiener, made from a pork-beef mixture, younger but with its own following. The Frankfurter was all pork, smoked and tied to imperial ceremony. It was served at the coronation of Maximilian II and at subsequent feasts of the Holy Roman Empire. The Wiener was a cousin, a Viennese interpretation of what a fine sausage should be. But neither was street food. In German-speaking Europe, these sausages were eaten at home, at market stalls, or at festivals. They arrived on a plate with bread or potatoes on the side, not cradled in a bun. They were preserved by smoking, packed in barrels, and could travel. That portability mattered because in the 1800s, the people who made them were about to travel too. The sausage carried the memory of a craft, skilled butchers working within strict regional guilds, following recipes passed down through generations. It was not designed for mass production or for a crowd of strangers eating with their hands. It was designed for a German table, but those tables were about to be left behind. Between 1820 and 1900, more than 5 million Germans crossed the Atlantic. They settled in New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, cities where their languages, churches, and food traditions could take root. They brought skills, butchery, baking, brewing, and they brought a taste for the sausages they had left behind. In the 1860s, German immigrants in New York began selling Frankfurters from pushcarts in the Bowery. The Bowery was a working-class neighborhood packed with immigrants, saloons, and street commerce. A place where a man could feed other men who had no time to sit down. The carts were simple, a coal-fired box to keep the sausages hot, a supply of rolls, sauerkraut, and mustard. The sausages were called Frankfurters, Wieners, or Dachshund sausages, the last because of their long, thin shape. Customers were workers and laborers who needed a hot meal they could eat standing up. The pushcart was mobile, unregulated, and perfectly suited to a fast-growing city. The vendor called out. Steam rose from the metal box, the smell of cooked sausage mixed with the street air. But the pushcart vendors operated in a gray zone. Newspapers of the 1880s report efforts to ban Wienerwurst men from street corners. The city wanted order. The immigrants needed to make a living. Still, the pushcart moved the sausage from the European market stall to the American street. It became mobile, fast, and cheap, adapted to the rhythms of industrial labor. But it was still a sausage on bread. It took a baker on a beach to put it in a bun. Charles Feltman arrived from Germany in 1856 at 15 years old. By 1867, he was pushing a pie wagon through the sand dunes of Coney Island, selling baked goods to beachgoers. In 1871, he leased a small plot and opened a stand selling Dachshund sausages in a warm milk roll, a long, soft bun that cradled the sausage. The innovation was not the sausage. German pushcarts already sold those. The innovation was the bun, a purpose-built vessel that made the sausage easy to eat while walking. Feltman was a baker, not a butcher. He saw the problem from the bread side. The solution, a soft split bun toasted on the flat top, seems obvious now. But it unlocked everything. Feltman's timing was perfect. Coney Island was becoming New York's great seaside escape, a place where working-class families and day trippers came for amusement, beach, and cheap food. By the early 1900s, his single stand had grown into a massive complex covering a full city block, 9 restaurants, 2 bars, a beer garden, a roller coaster, a carousel, a ballroom, a hotel, a bathhouse. In the 1920s, Feltman's was serving nearly 5.25 million customers a year. The hot dog was no longer a pushcart novelty. The bun made it portable, and portability made it possible to eat while watching a game, riding a roller coaster, or walking the boardwalk. Feltman built the model. But 1893 was the year the hot dog stopped being a New York beach novelty and started becoming a national food. The World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago drew 27 million visitors over 6 months, nearly half the United States population at the time. Among the food vendors were Austrian-Hungarian immigrants, Emil Reichel and Sam Ladany, who brought their family's all-beef Frankfurter recipe to the fair. Their stand was a hit. They stayed in Chicago after the fair and founded the Vienna Sausage Manufacturing Company, later Vienna Beef, which became the defining brand of the Chicago hot dog. Meanwhile, in St. Louis, German-American saloon keeper and baseball team owner Chris von der Ahe began selling Dachshund sausages in buns at his St. Louis Browns games. The connection between hot dogs and baseball was born. By the late 1890s, hot dogs were being sold at ballparks across the country. Baseball was working-class entertainment, played outdoors in warm weather, with long stretches between action, perfect for a cheap, handheld meal. The World's Fair was America's showcase, the White City, the Ferris wheel, the crowds. And a German sausage stand became one of its enduring food legacies. By the end of 1893, the hot dog had a national audience, but it still had no name that stuck. Before hot dog, the sausages were called Frankfurters, Wieners, or Dachshund sausages. The term hot dog appears in print as early as 1884 in the Evansville Courier and Press, which warned that the innocent Wienerwurst man will be barred from dispensing hot dog on the street corners. In 1895, the Yale Record published a poem about students eating hot dogs at a tavern. By the 1880s, the term was already in spoken use. The popular legend that sports cartoonist Tad Dorgan coined hot dog in 1901 because he could not spell Dachshund is almost certainly false. No surviving Dorgan cartoon uses the phrase. The story was repeated so often it became accepted as fact. What is true, the term was considered slightly vulgar in the early 1900s. The Coney Island Chamber of Commerce reportedly banned its use, requiring concessionaires to say Coney Island or Red Hot instead. Some thought it implied the sausages contained dog meat. The name persisted anyway. It was catchy, irreverent, and perfectly suited to a food that was itself informal and slightly disreputable. The name gave the hot dog an identity separate from its German origins, a distinctly American word for a distinctly American food. Nathan Handwerker arrived in New York from Poland in 1912. He got a job at Feltman's Coney Island complex as a bun slicer, earning $11 a week. In 1916, he and his wife Ida used $300 in savings to open a hot dog stand at the corner of Surf and Stillwell Avenues, directly across from his former employer. His strategy: sell hot dogs for 5 cents, half of Feltman's dime. Customers were suspicious. Cheap meat was often bad meat. The turning point came when Handwerker recruited doctors from a nearby hospital to eat at his stand, their white coats serving as implicit endorsements. Nathan's survived. Ida Handwerker developed the proprietary spice blend that gave Nathan's hot dogs their distinctive flavor, a recipe the company still uses. In 1916, the first Nathan's hot dog eating contest was held, supposedly to settle a dispute among immigrants about who was the most patriotic. The contest became an annual tradition, later a nationally televised event, and one of the most recognizable food competitions in the world. Nathan's proved that a hot dog could be a brand, not just a commodity. But even as Nathan's was building its empire, a world war was about to change the hot dog's identity forever. When the United States entered World War I in 1917, anti-German sentiment swept the country. Sauerkraut became Liberty cabbage. German measles became Liberty measles. And Frankfurters, named after a German city, grew uncomfortable to sell under that name. Hot dog was already in use, but the war accelerated its adoption as the primary term. This was not a government decree, but a market response. Vendors and customers alike preferred the less German-sounding name. The irony is sharp. A German food became more American because of a war against Germany. After the war, the hot dog continued its rise. During the Great Depression, hot dogs were cheap protein. A nickel could buy a meal. Franklin Roosevelt served hot dogs to King George VI and Queen Elizabeth at a 1939 picnic at Hyde Park, an informal gesture that signaled the hot dog's arrival at the highest levels of American hospitality. During World War II, hot dogs were not rationed as strictly as beef, making them a homefront staple. Presidents from Truman to Eisenhower to Johnson served hot dogs at White House events. The hot dog became a symbol of American democracy. A food a president and a factory worker could eat side by side. It was no longer foreign. But America is not a single culture. It is a collection of regions, and each region made the hot dog its own. The hot dog's strength is its adaptability. Every region developed its own style, and those styles became markers of local identity. Chicago built its version around the all-beef Frankfurter from Vienna beef, served in a poppy seed bun, topped with yellow mustard, chopped white onions, neon green sweet pickle relish, a dill pickle spear, sport peppers, tomato slices, and celery salt, and absolutely no ketchup. The style was born during the Great Depression when street vendors offered a full meal on a bun for a nickel. The drag-through-the-garden style became a point of civic pride. New York kept it simpler, an all-beef or beef-pork blend, boiled or griddled, served in a soft bun with sauerkraut and brown mustard, often with steamed onions in a tomato-based sauce. The focus is the sausage and the snap of the casing. Detroit's Coney Island hot dog is something else entirely. A natural casing beef-pork Frankfurter topped with a meat chili without beans, yellow mustard, and chopped white onions. Despite the name, it has no direct connection to Coney Island, New York. Greek immigrants in Detroit created it and named their restaurants Coney Island to evoke the famous boardwalk. And there are more: the Sonoran hot dog, bacon-wrapped with pinto beans and jalapeno salsa from the American Southwest and northern Mexico. The Kansas City style with sauerkraut and Swiss cheese, the Seattle cream cheese hot dog, the Southern slaw dog. Each style reflects the immigration patterns and local ingredients of its city. Every city has its version, and that includes yours. I would love to know where you are watching from and what your local style is. Tell me in the comments. The hot dog became a canvas for regional identity. It is no longer one food, it is dozens of foods, each claiming to be the right way to eat one. And from these regional kingdoms, the hot dog stepped into its final role, a national ritual. Americans consume roughly 20 billion hot dogs per year, about 70 per person. On the 4th of July alone, 150 million hot dogs are eaten, enough to stretch from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles more than 5 times. The Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, televised annually on the 4th of July, has turned competitive eating into a national spectacle. Hot dogs are sold at every Major League Baseball stadium, about 20 million per season. The top 10 hot dog consuming cities all host MLB teams. The hot dog is also the quintessential backyard grill food, cheap, easy, kid-friendly. It has survived health concerns, competition from other fast foods, and changing tastes. It remains a staple because it is cheap, fast, familiar, and endlessly adaptable. It is the most democratic of American foods, available at a ballpark, a street cart, a backyard grill, or a presidential picnic for the same price to everyone. The hot dog is both beloved and ridiculed. It is the subject of jokes about its ingredients, yet defended with near-religious fervor by regional loyalists. It is mass-produced and industrial, yet it inspires artisanal variations. It is simple, yet it carries the weight of immigration, entrepreneurship, and national identity. The steam rises from a cart on a New York street corner. The casing snaps at a ballpark in Chicago. The grill smoke curls upward from a backyard on the 4th of July. The hot dog is still being eaten, still being made American, one bite at a time.